Hey famous warrior, welcome back to our channel. Today, I have the pleasure of bringing to your screens another Shadow Ground conversation. If you've been keeping track with us, this is our third. And I have the amazing Nick Mubanga here with us. He is a husband, father, content specialist, leader in his church, lover of Jesus. He has an amazing testimony, and my hope is that in this conversation you will be able to not only get inspired and encouraged, but also challenged to think about Shadow Ground from his perspective. So without further ado, let's get into this conversation. Hey Nick, welcome.
Thank you, Louise.
Thanks for being here, making the time in your busy life, busy schedule.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Nice. So you were one of the panelists at the book launch, Shadow Ground book launch.
Yes.
And I know we didn't have the time to get fully into everybody's Shadow Ground experience that day because we had about 6 panelists. But you did get the opportunity to share a bit about your story, and it had amazing impact in the room. Friends of mine still talking about stuff that they learned from you that evening. And today my hope is that we can get a little bit deeper, wider, unpack some of the questions that I maybe didn't get to ask that day. So before we get into it, in true famous warrior fashion, share with the people watching at home 5 fun facts about you.
5 fun facts.
Yes.
About me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll start with the one I always hit people with. Nicholas is not my real name.
What? What?
Yes, my real name is William. Very few people know that.
Why do you go by Nicholas then?
That was is my baptism name. I grew up as a Catholic, and when I was baptized at around 11, 12, I was given the name Nicholas, but my birth name and government name is William. Yes.
Okay.
I just find Nicholas and Nick better. There are like 5 Williams in the family.
So you want to
I want to be
at least. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Second fun fact. I'm a broadcaster. I've been a broadcaster for 11 years now, but this was not what I wanted to be.
It was an accident.
Well, it was my sister's dream mainly.
I see.
I wanted to be a lawyer or architect, just either one of these two. But God had His own plans. Third, I was atheist.
Wow.
Yes, for someone who talks a lot about God now, it's interesting to might be interesting to know that I was actually very, very atheist and challenged Christians using the Bible about the existence of God. But well, thank God for salvation.
Yeah.
Yes. How many of those? Those are 5
That's
already.
4. No, one
Okay.
more.
One more. Well, there are not so many interesting things about me.
I'm sure
Lois.
your wife is one of the most interesting things about you. So please talk about her.
Yes. Yes, I'm married to this amazing woman. Her name is Norika Shimbami. Very interesting last name. Well, we changed that and corrected it. Yes. Mother of for now, one little girl.
Yes.
Her name is Nara.
So you guys are doing the whole N thing, I see.
Yes. We might change that. Her name is Nara. I think Nara is the one who has an interesting story than all of us in the house. Nara was an ectopic pregnancy.
Wow.
Who 3 hospitals confirmed and said there's nothing that can be done about this.
Yeah.
And in the words of that doctor, you have lost this one son. But I got the prompting to reject that report. And I looked crazy in that room at that moment.
Yeah.
But I did not accept that report. And I told the doctor, if you pray and if you're a Christian, the way you say you are, then you know that there's nothing that God cannot do. And I'm telling you that this child will be born.
Wow.
And a few more doctors tried to convince us, but we didn't accept that report. When the day came, 4 days after my wife was admitted, when the day came for the surgery and they did one last scan, that little embryo was not where we previously saw it all these few. It moved and was exactly where it was supposed to be.
Wow.
And today that little embryo is a 1 year, 11 months old child at home.
Wow.
Yeah, so
praise God.
Praise
That's
God.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
I need to have you and Norika on to tell that story a bit more.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I asked this question at the launch, and I've been starting these Shadow Ground conversations with that very question. And it is, how has your upbringing and your culture or your family culture, because culture is different. There's our overarching culture, and then each family has their culture. So how has your upbringing and your culture shaped your views on mental health over the years?
Well, that's I'll take the whole day answering that question, but I'll try to be brief.
Yes.
I think my upbringing did a lot of damage in the shaping of my views on mental health than shaping it in the correct way. I come from a family of girls, a lot of girls. I'm my father's only son, actually. I have 8 sisters right now, and grew up in a seemingly happy home on a farm somewhere in Lusaka West, and everything was okay. Got shaky after our father died. Got really shaky. We had to leave the life that we knew to adjust and try to live within our new means. And so we go from big farm, big house to Chawama, and it's a whole culture shock.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that wasn't even the worst part. So growing up, my father was the perfect, they called him family pillar, pillar of the family. Everyone ran to him for refuge. You have a problem, go to Mr. Mubanga. And I tried to be him, not to be like him, but to be him.
As his only son.
Everyone around me kept saying, walk like him. Your father used to talk like this, talk like him. And so he wasn't just a model. He was the person I wanted to be like. I wanted to be that man. I wanted to be respected the way he was respected, to be loved the way he was loved. And so he was a form of like a god to me. And remember, I was atheist at that point. The closest I had to God was him. This one time, while I'm speaking highly of my father and praising him, one of my sisters says he was not the man you thought he was.
This was after he passed.
This is after he passed. And everybody's trying to shut her up and shush her, but she goes ahead and says out things I'm not expecting about our father. I think I was about 18 at that point. And she talks about how he molested his own daughters. Since it was only her speaking at that point, she talked about how she was a victim. Now that's too much for me to handle at that particular point. I'm 18. I'm hearing these disturbing things about someone I adored so much, someone I loved so much.
Your hero.
My hero, and now I'm realizing that he wasn't the person I thought he was. That's like having the ground that you're standing on being taken away from under your feet. You realize everything you knew about this man might be a lie. in that moment, I walked out of the house and I never came back the same, because I went to drown myself at the bottom of a bottle, and that became my lifestyle in my life for the next 7 years. Just avoiding to go back and confront and address this issue that just came up. My father, the great man himself, being a ritualist, molesting a little girl or girls, that's not something I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
At that moment, at that time. So I found comfort in the bottle.
Right.
I found comfort in drinking, and that's how I became an alcoholic.
Okay.
Yeah. Even as I was, running away from this issue, still other things still came up. You would have a cousin call you up and tell you, oh, since Thelma has talked about it,
Oh dear.
now I can talk about it too. Remember that time that we came for a holiday? Yes, it happened to me too.
Oh.
So now you realize that there might be more people out
Yeah.
there that are victims
Yeah.
of your father's, and you start apologizing
On his behalf.
to different people. And the more you do this, the more you resent him. The more angered you are. So now my biggest issue was not even alcoholism. It was that I was angry, and not just angry at any man, but a dead man.
Who you can't confront.
No closure whatsoever.
No
That became my
answers.
new issue,
Yeah.
and it was difficult to deal with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So before we get into the coping mechanism that you you deferred to, which was alcohol, and also holding on to your anger, some kind of a coping mechanism, because they say that anger is not a primary emotion, it's a secondary emotion, and it comes out first, but you have to dig deeper to see what the actual emotion is that is being represented by the anger. And so I would say that you holding on to anger was also some sort of a coping mechanism. But okay, let's talk about your role model, your idol, your hero, your dad. You've just found out this devastating information about him, and even as you were saying, you've lost this person that you thought he was because you said you were trying to be him. I kind of get the sense that you probably lost yourself as well in that. And being the only son of this, family pillar, this strong, very masculine from what you're describing, man that everyone went to as their leader. And you're growing up trying to be this person, right? And now you have not only your world rocked by his death and you're grieving him, but now your world is rocked by all this information that you didn't know about him. How did you navigate that under the umbrella of, men are supposed to portray this tough exterior and we're supposed to have it all together, we're not emotional, we are supposed to be the strong ones, right? How did you navigate that season of your life? You talked about 7 years of being an alcoholic, and I'm guessing those 7 years of just trying to process and figure out who you are again, right? But yeah, talk about how you navigated that in trying to be the man that you thought now you're supposed to be, or that society expects you to be.
Yeah, I think those notions about men, not being emotional, not crying, and I think that contributed to the hiding that I did. Going to hide and at the bottom of a bottle.
Yeah.
Because you have these you feel the way you feel. You are angry. You have all this pain, but you can't show it because if you show it, you're weak. If you show it, you're not man enough. You have all these tags that people place on you. So now you start looking for places where you can freely not feel the pain, but freely embrace everything you're feeling without people looking. And usually those hidden places are not good places. You know, it's people drown themselves in different things, and where I drowned myself was alcohol, drugs, the self-harming, getting tattoos, anything that gives you pain so that you can numb the pain you're feeling inside. That's where I run to. The anger, it's in you, it's wants to get out, and you have to let it out. So you deliberately place yourself in situations where you can release this anger. So what do? You start getting into fights.
Wow.
Somebody looks at you the wrong way, it's a fight. Why are you looking at me that way in the club? Fight breaks out. The next thing you know, you're in the cells, which happened a few times actually. But all that was me running away from freely expressing what I felt, in fear of what people would think of me. And nobody talks, and we don't talk about this enough, how suppressing these emotions could be, and usually is, heavy on men's minds and mental health generally. I remember trying to kill myself several times. The last time I was actually almost very successful. I took a very, very toxic substance, which I didn't know was working, and I thought, it's not working, let me go out and drink. And it kicked in when I was drinking, and that was bad. But all of this was me trying to find a way to deal with everything that I was feeling, the disappointment, the anger, the resentment, all of that. And a few times it actually came out in the wrong ways, and channeled towards the wrong people. But the one time that I saw that, okay, this is bad, I saw my mother on the ground. If I'm not mistaken, I put down both my sisters who were present that day, or because they're trying to stop me from hitting someone. And next thing you know, it's them that are on the ground. Then you realize, okay, it's worse than I thought. This is just a manifestation of what I've been doing all along, emotionally to these people and mentally to these people. It's just that now it's physical, but I've probably been putting these people down because of how I'm poorly managing what I'm feeling, and how I've been running away from dealing with all of this. I've been putting them down emotionally, mentally. It got to a point where my own mother said, okay, it's like you want to kill yourself. It's like you want to see yourself die. I will not watch you die, so I'm going to leave you. And she left town. And that's when I realized that I need help. Everyone around me kind of left. I realized I need help in that moment.
Wow.
I don't know if I've answered that question correctly.
Yes, you have. You've used the phrase not properly managing what was inside, right? And that's where we pick up this phrase, coping mechanisms that we use to manage. And they can either be negative or positive. It's either you have the right tools to properly manage what is happening on the inside of your soul, or you don't, and so you go left and you're using all the wrong tools to just keep yourself above water. You're drowning on the inside and you're just trying to keep yourself afloat. And like you said, people use different things: alcohol, sex, pornography, food, gambling, shopping, so many things that people do, self-harm. And I would like to know, obviously in those 7 years, there is a point where you had your Damascus Road experience of some sort, Jesus met you and showed you that he was real. So I'm guessing your faith had a lot to do with you getting healing and getting sober. But along the way, and you can talk even about how you got saved, but along the way from there, what coping mechanisms did you have to then employ to undo some of the negative, to replace the negative ones that you were using?
What coping mechanisms did I employ?
Yeah.
To undo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the biggest one, like I said, is faith. But it was a while before I got there. When people ask me if my faith is the reason I don't drink, I actually tell them no.
Yeah.
That decision was made slightly before I, walked back to Christ. I think when, like I said previously, when I saw that people left, and I was alone at the center, I had no one else to look at.
You had to face yourself.
I had to face myself.
Yeah.
And I started seeing all the ugly. I started seeing all the bad things. I started seeing, okay, why would my own mother, say what she said? Why would she say, I don't want to see you die, so I'm gonna have to leave you? I think you're a mother. I don't think you can imagine any situation that would make you want to leave your child's side and say, I
can't do this.
So for a mother to get to that point, I probably had a lot of ugly on me. I started facing that reality and accepting it and just reflecting and slowly taking responsibility and accountability and being responsible for my actions and saying, well, it's not my father. I'm sure that excuse has expired by now. It's not what he did. Well, I can't downplay how ugly his actions were, but I can't also hold on to that excuse for so long.
Yeah.
At some point, I have to look at myself too. What am I doing about it?
Yeah.
So I remember this one time I was with boys drinking, and I had I did a lot of reflecting, and they thought I was joking. I just got up and said, guys, if any of us was called for an interview, I'm sure none of us has an outfit they can wear to that interview
for a job.
But somehow we always find money to drink, and we spend a lot. But if I was called for an interview, I don't know what I'd wear.
Wow.
And I thought I was joking. I said, I think I'm done. And the talk. Everyone quits and they come back. And I said, no, I'm done. I think I'm done with this. They thought it was a joke, but that's the day I actually quit. That's the day I quit. There's this friend of mine who kept talking to me about God. Funny thing is, he was Muslim, and then I kept inviting him to church. Then he gave his life to Christ, and he became really devoted. And then I fell off. I backslid, and now he's the one who was talking to me about Christ. And he was interning at Radio Christian Voice at that point. And he would pass through every time he was coming from work, talk to me about Jesus. Sometimes he would find me drunk. He would talk to me about Jesus. And when I got to that point where I faced myself, I looked at myself and I saw the ugly, and I had no choice but to be honest with myself, and I said, no, this is not a good place. I don't want to be here. I remembered him. I said, he's the one person who's been talking to me about God. Let me go to him. And I went to him to his place. And I remember I was in his room, and he said, if you're ready to rededicate your life to Christ, we can do it now. And he led me back to Christ, in that moment. I didn't even know how much of an impact that would be until a few weeks later. Relapse, right?
Yeah, because you've gone cold turkey. This is something that you were using this to survive.
Yes.
And then you've gone cold turkey. I'm not doing this anymore. How are you surviving?
Well, that was
right. So relapse is inevitable.
It's inevitable. I had a few moments where I actually relapsed, especially with the drugs. I gave my life to Christ, but the urge to drink and the urge to smoke, the urge to sniff up whatever can get you high, is also huge on the other side.
Yeah. It doesn't just disappear.
It doesn't just disappear.
Yeah.
So a few times you relapse, you feel guilty, you feel like that prayer didn't work. That prayer wasn't powerful enough. Then this one time, I was both drunk and high. He actually called me and said, you do a lot of music production. Radio Christian Voice is looking for a producer. There are a lot of people who've applied and they're being interviewed, and come through, come in audition. I didn't want to, but I did it for him.
You did it for this friend.
I did it for him, and I walked into that building smelling of both alcohol and smoke. And I was having a chat with this pastor, Pastor Sunday Mwanza, the first father figure that I had since Dad. Yeah. I'm having this chat with him, and I don't know that this whole chat is the interview. And he's asking me about my life, and I'm being very honest. And all the things I'm saying are supposed to get me disqualified because he's asking me so.
You're being brutally honest about this horror story that's been your life.
How's your relationship with God? I'm like, it's not good. I'm thinking, okay, that was my opportunity out the window. Then he says, come back tomorrow and meet the the station manager. I'm thinking, okay, they just come to tell me, to give me their rejection, and
let me
that's
down
it.
Easy or whatever.
I come back the following day, and station manager is taking me to this studio and saying, this is your new workspace. I don't know what's happening in that moment. I really don't. This is your new workspace. Have you ever worked with this software? I'm trying to process, what are they saying?
What's going on?
Can you start tomorrow? Can you start next Monday, because it was a Tuesday? I said, I can start today. I just need 5 minutes. I think Mrs. Nyang was actually shocked that I asked for 5 minutes, but I asked for 5 minutes, said I just need 5 minutes. I closed the door, everyone was outside, and I said my first genuine prayer in that studio that day, and it was a question to God, why have you brought me here?
Wow.
I really needed to know. I did not know why he was taking me to this place that I did not deserve to be in the state I was in. It's Radio Christian Voice. I don't even feel Christian enough in that moment, and I'm in this place, and they're telling me I have this 3 months contract, and I'm like, why have you brought me here? Sometimes I wish I never asked, because I didn't like the answers later. But that whole project is what jump-started. It gave me a hard jump-start. My spiritual life had a great jump-start there. This project was the audio recording of the whole Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Audio recording. And I was producing, mastering together with my friend who invited me to Christian Voice, who gave me that opportunity. We were producing it and mastering it. That is a crash course on the Bible. That is
whether you like it
or not. That's Genesis to Revelations, and you're listening to all these words, and now you have this thirst for the word, and you're thinking, wait, that really happened in the Bible? And you go back to read about it. These guys record and they they're doing all the narrations, and you're just amazed at these different stories from the Bible, and you're thinking, wow, that's in the Bible. Wow, God say that. Wow. So now you are exposed to the beauty of God's word, and you walked right from this place of darkness to a place of light, and it just seems so bright. It just seems so beautiful, and you start wondering, okay, what was I doing there? You know, in 3 months, and I'm thinking, okay, 3 months, this was good. This is why God brought me here. He answered the question.
And now I can live in peace.
Now, because you wanted to live a great result, you are working so hard that you are spending nights at the office, and the institution decides, we've seen how hardworking you are. I don't think we'd like to let you leave. We'd like to work. Would like you to work for RCV on a permanent basis.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, didn't expect that. So my stay there becomes longer. But I now get the reason why God took me there. In the next few months, there was a lady called Faith. Remember, I've just been exposed to God's word. Now I'm being exposed to prayer. A lady called Faith who she took me aside and said, God has showed me something about you. And in that moment, I don't even believe that, you know, certain things like prophecy and people seeing into other people's lives. And she's saying, God has showed me something about you. And I'm like, okay, what? And she tells me everything I've been hiding, because in that moment, I'm not very open about what God did.
Wow.
I mean, what Dad did. So she tells me everything and my anger towards my own father.
Wow.
I'm thinking, who are you? You know,
Where
are you
have you come
spying?
from?
Are you spying on me? But she explains to me what's happening, and she starts praying with me. So I get exposed to the beauty of God's word, and now I'm being exposed to the healing power of prayer.
Wow.
And this was a few weeks before she actually resigned and left. It's like that was her last task.
Yeah.
And I see how liberating and freeing, prayer is. And that's where the journey to forgiving my father began.
Wow.
It didn't just happen like that, but it began in that moment when I started praying about this, praying for my sisters, praying for God to touch my heart, praying for my heart to be emptied of all the anger, all the resentment. And that's when my journey to healing began, to forgiving my father began. I think those two would be the greatest coping mechanisms I employed to undo, getting into God's word and learning to pray.
Yeah.
Prayer in God's word.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't think I'd have done it with those two.
Yeah.
I don't think I can still do it with those two.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Before we then now talk about how things have been recently, how you met your wife, and some other things that I want to get into, you've skipped something because you told us you're an atheist.
Yes.
And then you told us you received Christ and then you backslid. So how did you receive Christ the first time? Like what took you from believing there's no God to there is a God and he loves me enough to have sent his son to die for my sins? Like, we can't leave that hanging.
I was born in a Catholic home, interesting enough. And I became atheist in those 7 years.
The 7 years of your alcoholism.
Because I just couldn't believe that there was a God out there who would allow for his children to be molested and defiled by their own father.
Yeah.
What kind of God would allow that? Those were my questions.
Right.
Where were you? Weren't you watching? I remember asking my mother the same questions, and it kind of felt like I was asking both her and God.
Yeah.
Where were you when all this was happening? Didn't you notice? Didn't you sense that there was something wrong happening in the house? I remember asking her those questions, but they are the same questions I started asking God, and I told myself, well, I'm not getting any answers. You know what? He doesn't exist. And it's crazy the lengths to which one can go when to just prove that God doesn't exist, especially when they're angry at him.
Yeah.
You know, I am angry and I want to justify this anger. I want to justify everything I'm feeling. So they got God. They use even the word itself to prove that God doesn't exist. So I read the Bible, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And this is something I usually talk about. Say, I have read the Bible so many times with the wrong intentions, and I never felt the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. It's like
And
the words just bounce off your heart.
I read the same Bible when I went to RCV during those 3 months, and now seeing the beauty, of God's word that I previously didn't see. And I understand what people say when they say we don't understand so that we can believe, but we believe so that we can understand. And I was trying to understand the Bible so that I can believe if there is a God or not.
Yeah.
But what I need to do is believe. Then I understood. I read the Bible to prove that God doesn't exist, and I use the Bible, to attack Christians. Okay, if it doesn't make sense here. If he really does exist, and if this is making sense, make it make sense. How is it saying this here and saying that here? There's so many things that I found wrong with the Bible because I wanted to find something wrong with the author, who is God, and I found those things, and I convinced myself that there was no God for a long time. Everyone who was around me knew that you can talk about God, you can bring up God when Nick is around. Wow. But sometimes you have to get to the very end of yourself for you to see certain truths, and I got to that place. I got to that place where I literally had no option but to consider the only option that remained, that was in front of me, that was before me. The only option I hadn't tried yet, God, and Jesus. I tried everything that I thought was going to make me feel okay. I fought fights. I cut myself. I did drugs. I drank. Porn. Sex addiction. All these things. Drowned myself in these things. None of them made me feel okay. None of them made the problem go away. So the only option I had was to consider the one thing I was avoiding, and I went back to Kunda and I said, I'm ready. And that's the best decision I've ever made.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Sure. Okay. Processing. Okay. Before I want to talk about you being a husband, you being a father. But before I get into that, before you were married, what are some of the things you discovered along the way in your faith that helped you understand what being a man according to how God's design was for manhood and masculinity, and how you showed up as that man? Like, what are some practical things that, if you can recall, okay, this is what I thought manhood looked like, and then as I grew in my faith, this is what it was supposed to be, and this is what I took on?
Okay. I have 2 daughters. My first child's name is Star Iman, and my second child is Nara. I think Star has the birth of Star is a very significant point of my life. I think I depended a lot on my strength as a man. I remember when I had a youth show, and I would actually encourage a lot of young people who looked up to me and would ask me questions, and I would give them the wrong advice based on my experiences. And I remember.
If you're watching and you're one of those people, he's very sorry.
I'm
Please
sorry.
forgive him.
I'm sorry. I was young. But I remember someone asking me, is it okay for a girlfriend to come for a sleepover? And I said yes. It is. As long as you don't do anything, you guys don't do anything. So my understanding of being a man was you have to be strong. I had a rude shock. You have to be strong. You have to be. But then Christ brings this upside down, world to us, where it's not really our strength. It's our weakness and His strength. And I didn't understand that then, even for me as a man. I thought I was strong enough.
Yeah.
Until that one night, and Stara was conceived. Then I realized
I'm not strong at all.
I can be strong, but at some point I will reach my limits. Yeah. I will mess up. And so I went into a season where now I have a girl pregnant. And mind you, I'm already Christian at this point. Yeah. And now I have a girl pregnant. Scandal. And you're on radio. Yeah. Talking about all these things, and there's a girl pregnant. And now you have to disappear for 6 months, Thankfully enough, I understood the power of being honest with yourself and recognizing where you're wrong and where you need help. So it was easier this time. I just had to take myself to my pastor and say, I think I need help.
It was easier this time. So a similar situation comes up and you have different tools to use.
Yes.
Wow.
So this time you're taking yourself, this is what's happened. I think if this has happened, it's an indication that something is wrong. And I think I need help fixing what is wrong. And yes, my pastor then, Reverend Chigora, helped me out. He reached out to the organization. Okay, the young man has come to me. He's explained. I'll take it from here. And he took it from there. We had counseling sessions.
Another father figure.
Yes, another father figure. Actually, yes, another father figure. It was as if God was correcting, the distorted. The distorted version of father figure. Yes. I had the distorted definition that I had in my head.
Correcting your father.
Because I didn't trust, I lost trust in father figures. If my own father could do that, what more? So God was correcting that. He brought Pastor Mwanza into my life, and now he brought Reverend Chigora into my life. Later on, he brought Pastor Stephen Mdoma, who would go on to become our marriage counselor. But in that moment, Reverend Chigora helped me out, and it felt lighter, this time as opposed to the first time. Yeah. This time, a whole 6 months of counseling I felt like, okay, I needed this. Yeah. Now I can go back with a corrected view and corrected mindset concerning this, and I can go back and serve.
Restored rather than in shame.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I would answer that. And Stara was born. She's 7 now. 8 this year in June. Beautiful girl. I think she's in grade 3. Be at Roma Girls Primary, and I love her. She's a great child.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So as a husband and a father, I ask this question because right now, and I'm sure you even know the stats more than me because you're in media and that's your job. But right now, especially in Zambia, a lot of men are struggling. They're struggling, taking their own lives. The numbers are shocking. The numbers are scary. They're disheartening. And as a man who loves the Lord, is doing life, everyday life, because just because you love God doesn't mean your life is like on hold or your life is any easier than the average person, right? We still go through life, right? You still have the pressures of being a husband, provider. You still have the pressures of having to be a dad. and how do you cope, and how does anxiety, things like anxiety, worry, dealing with this pressure, how does that show up in your life, and how do you cope with it?
Yes, and I think suicide is not the only problem right now. We've seen the rising cases of rape and molestations, especially the past few weeks. And in some of these cases, we hear that there are witch doctors involved, and these men are under pressure to get rich quick.
Yes,
you know. So witch doctors tell you, oh, 5 of you go and rape one child, and now you have a case of a 5-year-old child being raped by
imagine.
and the desperate solutions are being sought after by these men. You saw the little girl who was diagnosed with cancer being raped by her own father, or because the witch doctor told him go and sleep with her and that's how she'll get better. So you find that men are running to the wrong sources, for help in desperation. Whatever they're trying to achieve, but they're desperate to achieve that. For me, now that there's no alcohol, I think it's a joke I made with a colleague, Lenny, but it's not so much of a joke. I tell men, get married early. Marry early. If you can, marry early. To the right person, by the way. I have no shame going back home and telling my wife, I think right now things are not making sense. Right now I think I'm under pressure here and here and here. She's a therapist. Well, she's my therapist, and it's therapeutic. I find that in simply talking about it,
you're comforted.
I'm comforted, but also I realize I just need to talk about this. It's not as bad as I think it was. I just need to talk about it with someone. And now that I've talked about it, okay, now let me look for a solution.
But then men hide from their wives because I must appear strong. I must appear to have it all together. I must appear to be,
not be weak.
Yes.
But I think I learned from my past experiences that can lead you down a very, very crooked path. In trying to hide, one day you will want someone to see, but you've hidden so much that no one can actually see where exactly you've hidden your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts. We've had situations where people who we think are strong actually bring out what is ailing them or what is bothering them, and we think it's a joke, and we think it's that person. They can't be that bad. Meanwhile the person is actually deep inside that pit, that hole. And I've learned that the hard way. In my past experiences, I don't think I want to make that mistake anymore, or finding something to drown myself in or hide in. If I'm going to look weak for being honest about how I feel, then I think the problem is not with me. It's with
the person that views you as weak, right?
Yes. I think that's where the problem lies, not with me.
Wow, that's so powerful.
I think we must look at situations exactly the way they are, not try to dress them up in what we think they should look like. If we're anxious, we're anxious. Even God knows we're gonna get anxious. He addresses this in His Word. He only tells us, don't get anxious. But He knows it's going to happen. God knows we're gonna get angry. God knows God cares about all our emotions, but we think He only cares about the things we consider as big and grand. But He cares about how we think too. He cares about our mental health. If we talk about men going through these things and looking weak, then maybe what we're trying to say is Jesus was weak, and Elijah was weak, and Moses was weak, and all these men in the Bible who actually were depressed at some point. I mean, how do you explain the Son of Man? Explain the Son of God, Jesus, in the garden, scared,
Crying his eyes out.
scared, and we avoid saying
Sweating
that,
blood.
but he was scared in that moment. He sees
was
what is
anxious.
coming. He sees his destiny, and he says, "Well, that's scary. I don't want
I don't
that."
want to do this.
The Son of God
Yeah.
got scared.
So if he can go through that, what more you?
What more me? And I think we like to, especially as Christian men, we want to appear strong, but we don't realize that even with Jesus, the strength was not denying the existence of these feelings and emotions. The strength was in running back to God and saying, "Well, your will and not mine." That's where the strength was, not in denying how he felt, because he showed us there that even he could get scared.
Yeah.
He showed us that even he could get anxious. He showed us that that's what makes him relatable. But we like to think that denying the existence of these emotions is what makes us strong.
Yeah.
But in all of these people in the Bible, we can't even talk about David.
David, Joseph, like everybody in the Bible.
Elijah was suicidal.
Yeah.
Elijah just said, "I want to die."
Just take me now.
Just David was suicidal. A lot of the Psalms are. I think the Psalms are full of depression.
Depression, anxiety,
But all these
worry,
people,
fear.
they embraced how they felt, and what made David, just like Jesus, a strong man is his ability to run back to, the great source of strength, who is God. We could talk about this all day.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One of the coping mechanisms that are healthy, that the Bible speaks about, that true people of faith are now coming out and teaching about, people who are solid and know the truth of God's word, is boundaries. How you cannot be everything to everyone. And if you are trying to be everything to everyone, you are going to get overwhelmed and you are going to get into trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't be everybody's God. In fact, you are not supposed to be.
You're not supposed to be.
Yes. So being the only man, the only brother that your sisters have, the only son that your mother has, and I'm sure, other family members that look up to you because of your journey and your testimony, you're a husband, you're a father. How have you used boundaries in a healthy, godly, loving way to safeguard your mental health?
Right. Interesting that you started with you can't be everything to everyone. I'm reading a book by. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Oh yes, I've heard about that book.
It's a great book. And in part 2, which is what I'm reading right now, it actually says that. Here's the good news. You can't do it all. You can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And it talks about embracing your potential, but also embracing your limitations. And the way he brings it out is crazy, because it takes it from Genesis and says, God breathes in you. That's the God factor. That's God's DNA in you. That's the potential you have. But he also gives you limitation. The dust that you're created from, that's your limitation. So embrace both. The dust, which is your limitation, but also his breath, which is your potential. I've never seen it that way.
Yeah.
That is liberating.
Wow.
That is liberating, thinking of it that way and realizing I can't be everything to everyone. I have a sister who actually showed me that in a very healthy way. She was always there for everyone. She's the reason a lot of us even completed school, and mom couldn't afford it. She took us on and said, "I'll pay for him. I'll sponsor him from now on." But she got to a point where she had her own children, and her response became, "Okay, right now I have to take care of my kids first, I'll see what I can do afterwards. That was a healthy way. I observed that and realized she's actually right. She's exercising boundaries in a very healthy way, because this world, especially for men, can be cruel and ruthless sometimes. It keeps taking and taking and taking, and if you're not careful, you get to a place where you have nothing left to give, but it will not stop trying to take. I think you addressed that in your book as well. For me, learning that from my sister, I think helped me a lot, even for my own sanity. I've come to a place where I can only do the best of my abilities. I cannot go beyond that. I have 2 beautiful children and a wife who need me. I have me who needs me.
Exactly.
And until me is taken care of, and until these 3 people are taken care of, I don't think I should start being Superman to anybody else. If I'm sure that these are taken care of, me and these 3 people who are my immediate responsibilities are taken care of, then I can start looking elsewhere. But if I don't have the capacity to do this here, I don't think I should even try. And it's something I teach my team at work too. I teach them that first you come first. So that's one way I've placed and exercised boundaries for my own sanity.
I love that. I love that, because even Christ himself, when he came, was not everything to everyone.
No, he was not.
He would often retreat and say, guys,
and he didn't
I'm
go
done for
everywhere.
that. No, he didn't.
Where he was needed.
Exactly. So if he is our example, then surely we cannot be superhuman and try to do it all and be it all for everybody, because there has to come a time where that person will now go to God for themselves. Because you can't be their solution all the time. We could literally have this conversation for forever and unpack so many different things. But the last 2 thoughts I would like to end with are, what is your official review of Shadow Ground? You read Shadow Ground, you gave me a kind of snippet of your thoughts, you were at the book launch, you served in that way, and you've since finished the book. What are your thoughts about it, especially as somebody who's had his own struggles with mental health and is a leader in his community? What would you say about the book and how helpful it is or isn't for people who are trying to navigate managing their mental health and living healthily?
All right, I'll start by saying this. Just this past week, a few people in the office were actually talking about Shadow Ground. And they were in my office and we're talking about it, and Gabriel, who was also at the book launch, actually was talking about some of the things you wrote, and someone else got interested, like, can you pass around when you're done? Can you can you
buy the book? You're not getting Gabriel's copy, you're not getting Nick's copy. Can you buy your own copy?
So, but I'm just trying to show you how great this is. My honest thoughts about Shadow Ground is, I think when I read it, I think I even expressed my shock to you, because a lot of people write about mental health and how to cope with that and this from a perspective of I'm the expert on that, and I'm giving you this knowledge. You wrote it from a very honest perspective. You told people the realities of different situations in your life that most people would keep in certain corners of their life and say, no, it's not for everyone to know. And Lady Norena, who I listen to a lot.
Yes.
Like Lady Norena likes to say, to no one's soul you must bear yours, and you bore yours in that book. I guess it's the reason why it's easy to even talk to you, because you lay down, you pour your soul, and we felt this is someone I can trust.
Yeah.
This is not someone who's a superwoman bringing me a how-to kit. This is someone who's showing me that she's relatable. She has gone through some of the things I've gone through, or even things that I imagine other people are going through. She's been very honest about them. Not only their successes and victories, but also the low times and the dark times. This is a book I can trust. This is a book I can go back to and see, okay, how did Louise say she handled that? Let me see how she did that. Maybe I can learn a few things from there because of how honest it is. Again, I say it's not a how to get out of depression toolkit. I don't trust those. I think that's my honest review of Shadow Ground. I think it's a book that every person should read, because every person has their low times, and it's one book that, if it doesn't show you how you can also deal with your situation, it will kind of show you and encourage you to stay strong, because there are people out there. It will make you realize there are people out there that are going through what I'm going through, or that have gone through what I'm going through. So yeah, I think that's my honest review.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Okay, final thoughts to the person watching. Maybe they are a young man, or a dad, a husband. Maybe they're a young lady who is newly married and trying to figure out how she can create a safe space for her husband. I don't know. There are different people out there that are listening to our conversation right now. What one word of encouragement, final thought of encouragement, would you have to share with such a person?
To the young man, or just men in general. Isolation is one tool that the enemy uses to get to us, especially as men. But not only isolation, I think silence is also another great tool. We see that in Genesis. I like to call it the Adamic problem. I don't know if it exists, but we see in Genesis, we grew up thinking Adam was not present in that moment when the serpent was talking to Eve.
Yeah, we did.
But the Bible says
he was right there.
And so I don't think it's the absence of the man that was the problem. I think it's the silence. And when men keep quiet, usually problems follow right after. So whether it's about what you're facing, or what you're going through, or whatever problems you might be facing, I don't think it's healthy to be silent, to be quiet. That's a great tool that we freely give to the enemy. And usually when we're silent, we tend to isolate ourselves, and we're isolated, we tend to get manipulated by the enemy. So find people, find someone, find especially people you trust. Find someone you can talk to. Most preferably someone you look up to, a father figure. But even that, connect with brothers. Connect with friends, people you can honestly chat to about what you're going through. Just don't be silent about it. I don't know what I can say to the young woman except this. Men tend to speak up freely in safe spaces. I love that my wife has created a safe space for me. I don't feel judged. I don't feel like I'm going to be attacked if I talk about, certain thoughts that I have or what I'm going through. And so to the young woman, I think I would leave only a question. When you look at yourself and how you relate with that man, are you creating a safe space? Are you someone who can be called a safe space, where he can feel free and safe to express himself and talk about his lowest times and his darkest moments? I think I'll leave that question.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making the time, for being so vulnerable, sharing, the ins and outs of what makes William Nick Mubanga tick. Really appreciate you being here.
No, pleasure being here.
To the famous warriors out there, thanks for watching. Share, like, subscribe. I'm sure as you were listening to us talk, there was somebody or a few people that you thought of that could benefit from this conversation. So share the video with them, and remember that you are worth the fight. Even as you face yourself, face the realities of your past, face the emotions that are going through your inside, as you find good coping mechanisms, as you figure out how to be honest about where you are, as you find safe people that you can talk to, as you employ boundaries. All that is you fighting for who you are, the value that God has placed on you, and you are definitely worth the fight. So keep fighting.